Magna here with Mindful Dev, place where you can get tailored advice to your software career. Today I want to talk about the 3 things that I wish I knew when I was starting my programming career. Essentially, if you know these 3 things that will propel you in your career, make sure you leave the imposter syndrome behind as soon as possible and that you fall in love with writing code and being a software developer. So here we go. Number 1 is the mindset. You see, the mindset that you get at school is a completely different one that you need to be successful in the industry. Schools teach you how to think about code as a engineer, how to structure the code, how to write classes and put variables inside and all that. But what really is important in the industry is making sure that the code you write is maintainable. So let's step back for a second and see how that looks at school. Essentially, let's say you go to university and you get an assignment and you have to write a piece of code that your teacher will then later assess. At the end of the semester, what your teacher is going to do, what your professor is going to do after, grading you on your assignment and whatnot, they're going to take that piece of code, that file, and just throw it out of the window because nobody else is going to work with that piece of code. In the industry, it's completely the opposite. Whatever you create stays there until the company decides to ditch the product, rewrite it, or someone else comes in and refactors what you've written. So that's a really significant mindset change. Again, in the school, what happens is there's this cycle. The students come and then the students go. And then there's new group of students that have to learn how to program, so they create their own assignments. At the end of the semester, this code, trash. Doesn't matter. Nobody else works with that code base anymore. Whenever you're creating a product in a business, whenever you code features for something, it stays there for almost forever. Until, like I said, the company will ditch the product, someone will come and refactor it. It's just going to be there. So it's really, really, really important to think about writing code in a maintainable way. Maintainable, which means that it's easy for other people to take over. I mean, we're living in an industry, software industry, where developers on average stay at one company for about 2 years before they move on. So, if you write a piece of code in 3 years, you're most likely are not going to be in that company anymore, and someone else will have to take care of that code that you've written, right? So that's why maintainability is so important, being able to write code that someone else can take over. Number 2 is code that is decoupled. And by decoupled, I mean, whenever you create a new feature, add something to the code, it doesn't break things that were there before. Let's say a good example would be when your car breaks down and, you take it to a mechanic and the mechanic needs to fix a broken windshield. So they replace the windshield, they implement this new feature for you to have that windshield, and you wouldn't expect all of a sudden for the engine to not work just because the windshield was installed, right? So that's what I mean by decoupled. Things that are not related to each other, they don't break if we change them a little bit in the code. So part of making sure that your code is maintainable is to have a peer review. Have someone else look at your code and tell you, hey, I have no idea what's going on. Can you explain it to me? Maybe you created a piece of code that was a little bit too complicated for other people to then take over. Another thing would be, writing code the cleanest way you can with names of the variables that really describe what the variable is for, names of the functions that also, portray what the function is doing, and don't be scared to refactor that if over time it changes what the function does. So peer reviews, writing clean code, writing tests. Tests really help massively in making sure that whatever you write now did not break what was already there. Continuity. That's really super important aspect that is super important for the industry, but it doesn't really happen whenever you're studying programming. The second tip I want to give you that is massively important and really makes the difference between slowly growing your career and having this accelerated growth is try not to do it all by yourself. And I mean, I get it. Right now, you can research practically anything on the internet. And I mean, I've been on Stack Overflow a million times trying to figure out how to solve the problem that I had. But if you're at the beginning of your career, at the beginning stages, let's say 0 to 3 years in, you can really get on an accelerated path if you are part of a team that's more experienced and can pass that experience to you. Well, here's what happened to me. When I was starting, I worked at Nokia, and I was really fortunate because what they do for their developers is they train them from the beginning. So as I got hired, the first thing I did was clean code course and TDD development with Uncle Bob. That's the training they had, plus some solid principles. Now, I was even more lucky than that because I got assigned to a team of experienced professionals that had 5 and more years of experience. So I only worked with that particular team for 10 months. But when I compare myself to people that start around the same time with all junior teams, what happened essentially was I just saw myself, my growth, like skyrocket, go through the roof. It was incredible. I was like a sponge, and I was able to absorb all that knowledge from my more experienced peers that I could see clearly did not happen for my fellow devs who started at the same time as I was. And that's what I want to tell you. Like, people that are around you, the feedback that you get from them, the mentorship that you can get from them, they are game changers. Now I realize not everybody out there works as a part of a team, works in a team that they can rely on. But what I want to leave you with is this. Whenever you can, seek out those mentorship opportunities, ask questions, ask for feedback. Without that, you're not going to be able to grow because you don't know what you don't know. Not only was I really lucky, I mean, I gotta say, I was really lucky with the people that I met on my career path because it was thanks to the people I worked with, I was able to grow my career in a rapid pace. So another person that I super really appreciate that I want to talk to you about is my tech lead from one of other jobs that I had. Essentially, him and I, we worked together on an international project, and we went to a client site a few times, and he was able to see my potential, but he was also able to see clearly what are the things that I was doing completely wrong. And he was able to give me that feedback. But not only that, because he could see my potential and he gave me the feedback, and I was asking for that feedback constantly, trying to learn and grow and, fix the things that were not working as I was working towards becoming a senior software engineer. He also, additionally to all that feedback and guidance and mentorship, he was also able to be there for me and talk to the leadership about my skill set. And thanks to him and thanks to his ability to paint a picture about my skill set to the leadership, I got promoted. So your mentors are really game changers. Not only will they teach you and guide you, they can also put a good word on behalf of you and help you get that promotion. All right, here's the third thing I want to talk about. Number 3. And that is something that I feel is really missing in the engineer's education. And that thing is communication. The reality is most of us work in a team setting. We don't really work as lone wolves. So, and I mean, even if you're a solo developer, you still have to communicate with either your product manager, your project manager, your scrum master, maybe the business analyst, or maybe your client if you're a freelancer, right? So there's always this aspect of communication. But for whatever reason, engineers tend to think, okay, I have to be super technical and I have to know everything about the tech stack that I'm working with. And I mean, guilty, I've been there and I thought it, and I was going really deep and diving into the technology I was working with, trying to find the most optimal solutions I could to a problem. And that's all fine and dandy, but I was not able to, communicate the knowledge that I had to my peers, or try to negotiate to do things that I thought were best from technical standpoint. Just saying like, hey, I'm the expert and I know the best. Well, that's not gonna work. That's just not gonna work. You have to be able to persuade people to work with you on an idea. And communication also really is super important in an interview setting, whenever you're trying to promote yourself, to market your skill set, to show that you're going to be a really great asset to the team. And those soft skills, we kind of shrug them off as engineers. I see it often with a lot of my clients. But communication is key. So that's the tip number 3 that I wanted to leave you with. All right, now you know the 3 most important things that I thought are super important for me to tell you since you're at the beginning of your programming journey. If you find yourself overwhelmed, like it's hard, like you're stuck and you don't know where to go next, feel free to reach out. I'm here for you. And I hope you like what you see. If you did, hit subscribe down below and get notified every single time I upload a video. Now cheers to the success of your career.